right, here we go. All right. Welcome to the Buffalo Bridal Podcast. Molly from The Planning Touch. I'm joined by Ron from Buffalo Bartenders. And our special guest today is Lindsay from the Village Bake Shop. How are you?
Hi guys, good. How are you?
Good. Why don't we start talking about the Village Bake Shop? I know it's in Lewiston, and it, you offer desserts and cakes. Why don't you kind of tell us like the origin story of when it got established and how far you've came?
Yeah, so this is a fun story. One of my favorite stories to tell. The business originally started in 1993. So it was a mother-daughter who started. She always liked to bake. Her name was Tracy Marshall. Her mom's name was Vicki, and she just had a love for baking. How she baked was completely from scratch, which we still do today. Everything we do in-house is from scratch. Our pie fillings are made in-house. Our pie shells are made in-house. All of our cakes are freshly made. No mixes, no preservatives. Nothing will come in a bucket that we put out on our products. So we always wanted to honor her legacy, because she ended up passing at a very young age.
Okay.
So she died while she was running the business, and an internal team member, her name was Bridget Schroeder, took over the business and started running it. There was a short sale before Mike and I took it over. This is kind of like a funny story how it came to be, but we were sitting with the current owner. Her name was Bridget, and we were just buying our wedding cake. So we were going through the whole wedding process, right? And we were meeting with our wedding cake vendor at the time, and we were meeting with the Village Bake Shop. My dad at the time knew the owner. He's like, you got to go see my friend Bridget. It's always connections, right? When you're planning a wedding. So he's like, yeah, go see my friend Bridget. She'll take care of you. So we sat down, we went through the whole wedding process, and we just clicked, right? And she was aging a little bit, just looking to kind of give up this business. She was on the way out. So she knew, before she was approaching 60, she didn't want to have this business anymore. It's very labor intensive,
Yeah.
So you're on your feet all day. You sell your soul. Well, I sold my soul when I bought this business, So she had it for about, a little over 10 years. And she was just looking to sell. So she looks at us and she goes, you guys would be perfect here. And I looked at her like she was the craziest person I've ever seen in the room. I'm like, what is she talking about, perfect here? She's like, have you ever thought about like owning a business in Lewiston? Have you thought about owning a bakery? I go, I thought about owning a business, but not a bakery. I go, you don't understand. I burn Pillsbury cutouts. Like, I can't even get the time down on those 7-minute guys, So I end up burning those. So she's like, oh, no, you don't even need to know how to bake. I barely bake, she says. So I'm like, okay. She's like, you run a business anyways. My family owns a small business in town of Niagara, a machining company, and I've been in there since I've been 13, 14 years old by default, how family businesses go. So we ended up going through the whole wedding process, and that seed just sat with us, My husband worked for a bank. He worked for HSBC at the time, and his whole position was going to be gone. So they were eliminating his position. We knew when we got home from our honeymoon, he wouldn't have a job.
Okay.
So we went, got married. We're in Aruba.
That's where I went for my honeymoon, yeah.
And we're just in the water. We look at each other. He's like, we're going to buy that bakery. I go, you're nuts. You're crazy. Why would we
Was there
do
drinks
this?
involved that
yeah,
morning?
Yeah.
Was that part of it?
Yeah. So I was like, you're crazy. He goes, no. He's like, let's pray about it. I really have a great feeling about it. Let's just do it. We're 25. We're young. We're dumb. We have our whole lives to recoup this if it goes, south. So I'm like, okay. Let's do it. So we get home from our honeymoon. This was in September. We closed on the business in November, 2 months later. And we started running the bakery 2 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And we knew nothing about baking or anything. So what we did, we just learned from our staff. So I am so blessed to say I have some of the same staff as I did when we took over 13 years ago.
Wow.
As I do today. A lot of the people that I took on when we took over the business have, retired.
Yeah.
But we've just all became such a great family. So that's such a blessing to me that they were like, okay, they trusted us, 25-year-old dumb kids, buying this business for some reason. They trusted us, and we learned the baking directly from them. So they trained us with the recipes we had in house, because when we bought the business, we bought all the recipe rights.
Okay.
So from there, that was in 2011, and we've just grown the business. It's been unbelievable how many people we've met through the years, how many restaurants our desserts are in now. I think we're over 30.
Wow.
Over 30 restaurants?
Yeah. And we took over, I think we had 7 or 8 that we supplied our desserts with.
I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah, that's one of my husband's strong suits. He's a salesperson.
Yeah.
He loves it. He loves that part of the business. So, so that's kind of our story.
Okay.
And there's a lot in the book of the Village Bake Shop, but that's kind of our start, how we started, and how it came to be that, we took over the business. So again, we have no culinary background.
See, and honestly, this is all new information to me. I had no idea.
Neither one of us. So we both had business degrees. He had marketing, and I had business admin from NU. So we knew we could run a small business, right? But not necessarily baking. So we just learned from our staff, and it's been great. It really has
that's
been.
amazing.
It's funny because I would have made the call while I was in Aruba. I'd be like, we're buying it. And my wife would have been like, baby, you just bought it.
Well, we still didn't count our boostas yet. So we didn't know how much money we had,
You just made that decision.
So we were just like, okay, so we're counting our booster money, and we're like, okay, we could do this.
That's one thing my wife will always kill me about. She's like, you think about it for about 10 minutes, and you're like, go.
Yeah.
So good for you guys not to just like go full blow and really think about it for a minute.
No, we just took a leap of faith with it, and it's paid off. Really,
Good.
It has been.
I would say.
Yeah.
So what are some of your specialty or most popular items at Village Bake Shop?
Yeah. So one of the things that was created by Vicki and Tracy is our Mile High apple pie. People come from all over. They come from Canada. We have people that come in and they're like, we drove 3 hours for this pie. It is thinly sliced apples. It's mountained. It looks like a mountain, kind of. It's miled up with streusel topping, and it weighs 5 pounds. It's delicious. I mean, it's just unbelievable. People say they taste nothing like it. It's just how we bake it, but it's definitely a presentation when you put it on a table, when you're hosting guests, especially for Thanksgiving. I think on order this year, we had about 220 of them that our staff ended up baking in 2 days.
When do you start getting orders for those?
Thanksgiving, we start like right at the beginning of November.
Okay.
We have a cutoff date, so just so we can manage the orders in the back. We know we have to hit 220 apple pies, 90 triple berry, so on and so forth. And then as our back end staff is producing, it's like, okay, we can, have in the store, 20 on hand for pickups. My staff is just incredible, the amount of orders that they could handle. So we know we could just, okay, we are going to have a lot of stuff in store for you guys to pick up, but we can't take anything else, just to manage, our orders and control the back end. So, it's
Very
been
nice.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, let's talk about the weddings. So,
It's fun.
what's your process? Let's say, I'm planning a wedding and I have my date, I have my venue, I need my wedding cake and or dessert. I know desserts are kind of going in all different directions.
Yep.
So why don't you kind of go over the process of booking you and that kind of thing?
So you said a couple things that are the starting questions that I ask at the meetings. What's your date? Where's your venue? What are your colors that you want incorporated in on the cakes and or desserts? I have some people, I actually just got an email yesterday from a bride that doesn't have a wedding date and doesn't have a venue, but she knows she wants to book me.
I've gotten inquiries myself too.
So I'm like, that's great. I'll be here, right? Get all those ducks in a row, because it is part of the coding process, right? And it is a part of designing your cake and designing your dessert. So if you don't have your colors, you haven't met with your florist, if you were choosing flowers that were going to be incorporated in on the cake, do those steps. I am like the last vendor you should meet with, along with like the DJ, right? So like me and the DJ should be like the last steps of the wedding process. That's because I'm going to ask you everything under the sun from the starting point of the process, you know, who your venue is, you know, where are the desserts being placed.
Right.
Those kind of things are key questions when I'm assisting in designing the cake and the desserts. So usually what they do is they inquire, right? And I send them a booking scheduling link for them to pick a date. And they'll come in, they'll bring their color swatches with them, and we will try, you know, a plethora of desserts and a plethora of cakes. So I'll ask them if they have any specifics on flavors that they want to try, and I want to make sure I have the things that they want to try, you know, the items and the dessert combinations from the cakes and the fillings that they want to try. I don't want to just guess. So tell me something you're interested in and I'll make it for you, so we can go from there. And then I'll give you more offerings that you don't even think are
you did that. You did that at mine with the almond raspberry, which I don't even like raspberry anything. Right. And that's the cake I picked for my wedding.
I know. And it's so great when people are so out of their comfort zone when they're choosing their desserts, and that's what I want to give them. I don't want just, you know, a plain vanilla cake. I don't want to give that to them because it's safe, it's generic, right? We want that flavor. We want people to be wowed by your desserts, you know? So I guide them and I encourage them that this is like the best decision for them. We want your desserts to be memorable, just like your day. So we want them to stand out above all the others. So we sit down, you know, we go over a lot of different things, from their visions, from the size of their cake, which does vary. A lot of brides come in and they want that grandiose cake that's, you know, 3, 4 tier, 5 tier tall.
Right.
And we try to achieve that for them, and see how many servings will come from that, and then feed the other guests with either sheet cakes or a dessert bar. And some people come in, they're like, I just want a little 6-inch to cut, right? And we go over all those things because not every bride and groom are the same. So
I guess I was dumb. Like, I always thought like wedding cake, they cut the whole thing and like that's what everybody got. I don't think until I got married, I never realized that there's a sheet cake in the back.
There's a sheet cake in the back. And when I say that, I say it so many times, and you guys too. When you're selling your business, it's common to you, but it's not to the client, right? So I say the things to them, and they're like, not everyone eats from that display cake. And a lot of people's faces are, what? What do you mean? You know, they think they have to get 150 pieces from a display cake, from their tiered cake. I'm like, that's not the case.
Do you put styrofoam on some of your cakes? Because I've worked with the fake cakes, so it's like you can't even cut into that. You need the sheet cakes.
Exactly. So when we do the fake cakes, we do a lot of fake cakes when a lot of people do dessert displays and we're not necessarily needing the cake for servings, or people have an outdoor venue, and as we know, heat and humidity just don't work well with desserts. So again, those are kind of the planning questions that I ask, just because I want your cake to sustain. You know, I want your desserts to sustain the elements. So we'll go over all of that stuff. And then we just have fun. We have fun, you know, so we try a lot of different things. I show them a plethora of things that we offer, and we just create such a great offering for their guests, and we have fun with it. So
the dessert tables. You offer dessert tables.
We do.
What kind of things can you include in the dessert tables?
What can't you include? That's a shorter list. So what I always want with my couples when they come in to me is I want to give them exactly what they want on their day. So most vendors will give them a dessert display, right? It has 10 items and you have to have them, right? You have to have those dry ribbon cookies that nobody eats, or those like honey sticky powdered donut things that nobody eats. They just sit there. And I don't want that for my couples. So they literally get to choose whatever they want on the dessert display. So I believe I have probably like 25 different desserts that can be incorporated in on the dessert display, from cheesecake bites, brownie bites, mini cannolis, cream puffs. What else do we have? Cake shooters. That's one of our most popular things. Are the cake
I didn't even get
shooters.
one at my wedding. They went so fast.
Those are awesome.
I need to start indulging at people's weddings. I miss out on all the good stuff.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I feel like we're too busy to do it, but I agree.
So the dessert displays come with 8 different choices of desserts, but with all the different flavor combinations, you could be anywhere between 16 to 20 different variations of these desserts, from different flavors of cheesecake bites, different flavors of cake shooters, how your Oreos are dipped, how your pretzel rods are dipped. It's fun. We incorporate all your colors in on the desserts too. So not only is it dessert, it's decoration. So it really does make the room come together, and it excites people when they see that dessert table out and they're like, oh, I can't wait to get to that.
Well, usually,
after dinner.
on a side note on that, because a lot of people don't wait till after dinner.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell my brides, if they have somebody coming to set up a dessert table ahead of guests arriving. This is like my number one like go-to advice for them. I go, you have to create a closed dessert tables closed for dinner, closed until after dinner, and then after dinner I remove the sign. But if you do not, people will eat that before dinner, and you want to get like those nice photos of it while it's together before people start touching it.
Definitely, and that's a big concern of brides. One of the things too, when I sit and I meet with them, is I tell them, you care now, but on your day, I promise you won't care.
I didn't even see mine.
You won't care, you know? And so what? You're going to see somebody with 10 desserts on their plate. Let them have the 10 desserts, right? It's okay.
Yes.
Don't go up to them and snap their hand, you know?
It's okay.
Just let them have the 10 desserts. With the dessert display, it is kind of a free-for-all, but it's fun. You know, it really is the way for people to go now when they're planning their weddings, because it has variety, and you don't have that amount of waste that you have with cake. Cake ends up being wasted because it's on a table most of the time. It's plated and put at each person's table. And sometimes it's served with ice cream, and then that ice cream ends up melting at the cake if people are on the dance floor and everything like that. I always tell people, if people want dessert, they will find it. Right?
I can't tell you how many times, like, I'm doing cleanup of cups and cans and stuff, that I'll see a full dessert sitting there.
For sure.
And whether it's because the DJ started and like he got distracted or whatever. And I'm like, man, what a waste of cake.
It is a waste, and that breaks my
waste.
heart. Like, that's when that happens, I know I didn't do my job properly, right? Because those are those questions that I ask you. It's like, you really don't want to plate and serve, but a lot of people get, pressured from families because generational, like, they come in, they're like, well, at my wedding, right, we plated and served it, it's more formal. And I get that. That's totally fine. If you want that, that's your decision. Just know you're going to have some waste at the end, you know? So I got to have cake for 200 people. Odds are only 150 people will eat cake. You know, so know that 50 pieces of cake are going to go in the trash, you know, because people are going to be too busy at your bar, right? So you're going to be having
if
too
the bar
much.
even closes.
Yeah.
That's another.
So they're going to be way too much fun at your bar. So they're not going to want to eat dessert. They're there on the dance floor and they're having a good time. So, and that's good. Everyone has their own choice for the day.
Some people just don't want dessert.
Yeah.
They're kind of weird, but they might not want dessert.
Well, honestly, cake, a lot of couples aren't even really doing cake cutting ceremonies at all anymore. Like, they're completely taking that out, and they want a different form of dessert to do.
I would say at least 20% of the people that come into me, they don't have a cutting cake. They just do the dessert bar. And that's fine.
It's totally fine.
It's one of the questions I ask, do you want one? It's up to you. One of the things that's kind of going away is the 1-year anniversary cake, where people are serving or freezing
it.
This year when I'm meeting with couples, I have to tell them, like, okay, you could save your top tier for your 1-year anniversary. And they look at me like I have 3 eyes. And I'm like, they're like, what is that? What does that mean? I'm like, why are people, is this not a thing?
It's kind of gone downhill.
Yeah, people are getting away from it. So a lot of times people would save a piece of their cake or their top tier for their anniversary, take it home, freeze it, and defrost it at their 1 year to celebrate. That is fading out. That is kind
completely.
Yeah. So a lot of people aren't doing that. They don't want that. So some of the things that we're doing is, if you spend $500 with us or more, you get a fresh anniversary cake at your 1 year. So I would send them a gift certificate. It's just a little perk of booking.
I got it, and I loved it. It really made our first year really memorable because it was the same flavor. So it was great.
It's fun. You just gotta notate that when I send the email with the flavor choices that you had, and then you just place that order for that fresh cake. You don't have to store it. It doesn't have to be freezer burnt, and you just enjoy a fresh cake together, at that 1 year.
So speaking of the trends,
I've
been doing a lot of research for our Hot Takes episode that's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the cake smash?
what's the cake smash?
Were
People
you
smash it in
smashing
the
it in the
face?
face?
Oh God, no. Have you seen the cost of makeup?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about that.
Oh,
so,
especially if you airbrush.
So-
I was gonna say I don't know how the bride is gonna feel about that.
Don't do it to her, because I'm telling you, that's not gonna go well.
That
That
might
is
not
not
go
gonna
well.
go well, because especially if you have a makeup artist, I've seen those bills, and I'm like, whoa.
That's lasting all day and night.
Don't mess
Yeah,
up her
yeah.
airbrush, because you don't want
But
to
maybe
start
the
off
guy.
life with that.
Could we
That
throw it
way-
into the guy's
I mean,
face?
Yeah. Yeah, you could do it in the
It's
guy's
funny
face.
because what I've been seeing, everything that I'm looking up, people are starting to say it's disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I find it disrespectful, especially if the couple decides, okay, we're gonna go.
If they're
right?
agreeing on it,
Right.
yeah.
Do you want to know the coolest thing I heard? So I met with a couple probably about 2 years ago, and when I was meeting with them, they told me that they were going to do the cake smash, right? But a way to raise money and collect boostas and as a fundraising thing, they had a box that said bride and a box that said groom. So all their family, all their friends that came to the wedding, whatever box had the most money in it, that's whose face got smashed with the cake.
Oh.
And
I
they were
like
okay.
that.
They were on board with it, right? I thought, I was like, oh my gosh, what if it's the bride? Of course it's going to be the bride,
Yeah,
right?
everybody wants the bride.
But she was totally cool with it. She's like, yeah. She goes, I just thought, they just needed money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were starting off and they didn't have too much. So they were like, yeah, I thought that would be a good way to kind of fundraise, So whoever had the most money in the box got their face smashed
Okay,
with cake.
that's an interesting
but
way
they
of
were
doing
both
it. It is.
cool with it, which I thought was cool. And I've never heard about that. I've never heard it since.
Do you know whose face got smashed?
I don't, and I'm
Oh,
really
man.
upset about it.
I'm gonna go with I bet the bride. I bet everyone would just want to see the
sure.
bride because she got her makeup done.
For sure, unless she had her dad on her side and he put 100 in his
Yeah.
box, you know what I mean, and wanted him to get this.
That's
the
a fun
cake
idea.
there.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, but both were on board. I guess it depends.
Yep.
If you're on board with it, okay, but I've seen those airbrushes bills, and I wouldn't want to get on her bad side.
I never liked the full-on smash. If you do a little
Yeah.
around the lips or
Yeah,
whatever,
when you're feeding each other too.
kind of just
Yes,
joke like a
yes,
dab, not
yeah.
a smash, like a
Yep.
dab.
I know you don't want to completely ruin your entire face.
You don't. You definitely don't. Not with that. So yeah.
Well, that was a good story. Do you have any baking or cake disaster
gosh.
challenged stories?
How much time we have?
In 13 years. I mean,
In 13 years, we have stories, and some things, I have to be reminded of. When we go through pictures or we see things online, my decorator and I will be like, "Do you remember this game?" And we'll be cracking up about it. Do you remember we made you do this? It was hilarious. So things happen.
Yeah.
Life happens. Just like I tell people on their day. My niece is getting married this year, and she has her itinerary down to the minute. At 1:17, she's doing this, right? And I'm like, Lex,
It's just a guide.
it's going. The day has a mind of its own,
Yes.
right? And you just need to let things roll
Yes.
off.
It's
you
a live
can have
event.
and
guide.
that's too small
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
minuscule thing in the grand scheme of the whole wedding.
I
to
know.
worry
You
about.
It just
can have
doesn't
a
go
guide, but
exact every time.
It doesn't go, and just like life, and just like small business, right? It doesn't go your way sometimes. We had some disasters.
I think what people forget too for you is
Yeah.
that you're baking that in store.
Yes.
And travel.
And then you have to
Traveling
travel.
it completely stacked, and that's kind of where I'll go with that story. We take a good amount of cakes on a weekend, and sometimes, we will combine cakes and drop-offs for setup and delivery if we can in our car. But we did have a 3-tier going out to, I think it was Samuel's Grand Manor. So from us in Lewiston to there, it's 45 minutes, and we had a little stop in the way. So we set up another cake out in Buffalo, and then we headed to Samuel's Grand Manor. So, you get comfortable, right, when you're driving, right?
Yeah.
So my husband was a little comfortable, I guess, and he ends up hitting a curb. And this was, I think we had probably 2 cakes fall over in 13 years, which is, I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take
that's not-
odds,
that's not a lot
I'll
at all.
take those odds. But I hit the curb and I knew it went over. I didn't want to turn behind me, and I'm like, I know this thing is gone. I know it. I turned around, I'm like, the cake fell over. it fell over. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, well, you hit a curb, Mike, you hit a curb. So again, we had...
How tall was it?
It was 3 tiers.
Yep.
Completely real, right?
Yep.
So as cakes sit out, they get softer. You have support dowels in them for structure support. But a jolt like that, there's only so much it's gonna go over. So especially when it softens up. So it fell. So that was the first time I've had a cake fall. So I call my staff, I called my decorator. Thank God she was still there. I'm like, you need to meet me at Samuel's with a bunch of buttercream, because we always go with like piping bags in case we have to place flowers on and we nick the cake and I have to smooth it out, things like that. But I don't go with like a big bucket.
Right.
This needed
a lot of work.
This needed assembly, right? And so it's down. So we call Samuel's, and this is why I love Western New York. This is why I love like where we are. We make one phone call to Samuel's, right? And I'm like, this is a Village Bake Shop. We're coming for so-and-so's wedding. Our cake fell over. They're like, what do you need? I go, I need a space. I need like, some counter space to work with, maybe a fridge to go in and out of. They're like, that's okay. Come to this store. We got you. So my decorator meets us there. We get the cake in, and thank God the tiers were intact, right? It just fell over. Okay. So we were I made him pull over, and I took them apart and set them like safely. So the cake component was not ruined. If the cake was like smushed, then we would have a bigger problem, right? So we ended up, she met us there with frosting, and we're assembling the cake, cutting it in and out of the fridge, because you got to get the frosting to get it smooth, right? Obviously, the cake design was not what the bride asked for.
But she didn't know that this even happened like the day of.
She didn't know this happened, and that's like,
that's
know
one
this.
Of our tricks.
That's what I do.
Yeah, hiding these things. I'm like, don't tell her. She doesn't even know. It's going to stress her
That's
out.
how I work. Yeah. I don't tell them
anything. It's going to stress
anything.
her out. I'll take care of her, on Monday. So my decorator, we end up putting the cake back together. It's not what she wanted. It was more of a textured icing, but other than smooth. She wanted smooth and a cascade. We got the cascade in there, so it did cover up a little bit of the imperfections, but we put it out, and I talked to the mom before I left. I said, I have to tell somebody, because if she thinks we delivered it this way, on purpose, then we better not, we shouldn't be in business. So I told the mom, and the mom was so mad at me, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I go, I will make it right for her on Monday. I promise you, So I cried the whole way home, because you see how much work goes into weddings. You see how much time, and for you to fall short for that bride,
to feel like because nobody's perfect, like stuff like this happens, but it affects us a little bit different because it's more personal.
It does. I mean, like, I love what I do, and I love those phone calls that I get that like we delivered exactly what they wanted. We made their whole vision come to life, and I knew that this bride just wasn't going to have that memory, and I'm like, oh man, and that just cuts you. Yeah. So the whole way home I cried, and I'm like so nervous to call this bride on Monday, right? I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm pepping myself up to give her the call.
Yeah, you gotta get ready.
I know that I'm just gonna get right hooked in the jaw, right? And so I call her, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna use Maria. I forgot what her name is. I'm like, hi Maria, it's Lindsay from the Village Bake Shop. She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, are you guys okay? She's like, did you get in an accident? I'm like, no, my husband hit a curb. I was like, I'm so sorry. And she goes, the cake was beautiful. I didn't know anything different. And I'm like, okay.
That's not what you were expecting to hear.
I was like, okay, all right. I go, this is not how I thought this phone call was going to go. I was like bracing myself for impact here. And she's like, it was beautiful, and she had a sheet cake on the back end. So, there was servings and stuff for their other guests. But, I was like, well, at least let me refund some of it. So I did. She let me do that and make it right by her. But that was like such an awesome phone call to hear.
That's not what you were expecting.
It's always so great when they're chill about it. Like that they understand that you're a human being and things happen.
And I knew at that moment that it really didn't like impact her day, like upset her, because I'm like, wow. okay, this is great, so I felt so relieved after that. But I mean, we've had some stories, things like that, a lot of topper stories. So, things that break, things that fall over on the top of a cake.
Because usually the topper's waiting for you at the venue type thing.
Yes, yes. So, one time my husband was delivering a cake too, and they love their dogs. People love their dogs. They absolutely
my dog was on my
love
cake.
their dogs, right? But my husband's brain just wasn't screwed on this day, right? So the dog was sitting on the cake board, right? And just a little bit of frosting, but as it warms up, right, it gets moved. And I'm like, just put the dog like in a box and carry him up, then put him on site, right? Well, he didn't do that. So the dog, broke as he was carrying this cake up. It fell off the board and it shattered. And he's like, oh no. He calls me like, the dog broke. I'm like, okay. So thank God we were at Doubletree in Niagara Falls, who is also another wonderful venue. I love working with them. They've become such good friends of ours, and they come to our aid, with the super glues and stuff like that, and trying to put this dog back together for her. Obviously, we had to make that one right with the bride because she knew that the dog figurine was broke. But his tail was completely missing. Yeah,
but as a business, you step in and you try and make it right. I mean, everyone makes mistakes.
You own your mistakes. We're human. We are going to make mistakes, but it's all about how you handle it, right?
It's all unexpected.
It's all about how you handle it, and we are always there to make it right by our customers, and we want everything to go smooth, and most of the time it does, but sometimes it doesn't,
right? I know.
So we just own that and we make it right by our customers. But they've definitely made for some good stories, a couple laughters, even with the clients at the end, we laugh about it, so it's fun.
All right. Are there any baking myths? Not that I have any off the top of my head. That you want to just debunk from what people assume or think.
Baking myths. So most people just follow your recipes. You know what I mean? You have to follow your recipes down exactly how they read, right? Room temperature.
Makes a difference?
Makes a difference, right? Salt. Yep. Makes a difference. Add that salt. So we have a lot of people that will come in and is like, I followed this recipe top to bottom, but did they really? No, they didn't.
Something happened.
Something missed, right? Where it says a pinch of salt. They didn't do the pinch of salt, right? Did they do a heaping scoop? They didn't do a heaping scoop.
Did they not do any?
Right?
Any salt?
Any salt. Salt enhances the flavors of the other ingredients, right? And it also adds as it accentuates your yeast and things like that. So you have to add it. You have to put it in. But a lot of times, people will pull their butter directly from the fridge. They'll pull their eggs directly from the fridge.
Me.
Yeah.
I do that.
And then their recipes don't come out exactly how they remember that food to taste, or that, treat to taste. So if you are following Grandma's recipe, Grandma did it right. So if she wrote room temperature, follow it. Make sure you get those eggs to room temperature. Make sure you let your butter sit out a little bit, if it does call for that. So those are kind of things that, when people say just the ingredients they're following, but you got to be mindful to those things, especially with baking, because baking is very temperamental. It's not like cooking at all.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to be mindful to those key things when you are baking.
Yep, that's why I'm more of a cook than
a baker. More of a cook, I know.
Yeah.
So I do very well with cooking, because I'm like, just pour this in, pour that in.
There's a big difference between the two.
Huge difference when you're baking.
I always tell my wife she would be an amazing baker, because when she cooks, if it says put a pinch, she'll be sitting there with the salt. She'll be like, okay, is that a pinch?
Is that a pinch?
And I'll be like, baby, that's a pinch. Just throw it in there.
Honestly, I don't put the pinch in, so now I have to put the pinch in.
Put the pinch in. Put the salt in, just put the salt in. It's okay. Your doctor approves. So
Perfect. All right. Well, why don't you just tell us how people can get in contact with you, find out more about Village Bake Shoppe?
Yeah. So we do have a storefront. We are located in the Village of Lewiston. We have a storefront right on the main drag there, right on Center Street. It's 417 Center Street. We've been there now for over 20 years. So you can come in there. You can come see us. We have great staff if my husband and I aren't there. You can also email us, or we have a website, villagebakeshop.com. The shop is spelled SHOPPE, which is a little bit different. I know it's a little fancy. I like it.
Little extra.
A little extra, just like me. Or we have Instagram, Facebook. A lot of people message directly through those social platforms. So we definitely monitor those on a daily basis. They could just reach out to us then. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's it. Okay, so one of the things we will offer to people who mention this podcast today is we are doing a free anniversary cake. I know I kind of talked about the traditions of that, getting away from that, but we are offering a free fresh anniversary cake at your 1 year. You just have to mention this podcast when you come and meet with us to plan your wedding.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, sounds good. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you on and learning more about the Village Bake Shop.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right.